Hi, my name is Felix Fry.
And I'm Marco Rajnica.
We're here to find great trading opportunities that target 150 to 400% returns. And you? Well, you're going to help us do it every single day. So welcome. This is the Winning Picks Podcast. This podcast is for educational purposes only. Options Geek LLC is not a broker-dealer. Options Geek LLC, Felix Fry, and Marco Rajnica are not registered investment advisors. Keep in mind, options involve substantial risk and are not suitable for everyone. Please consult your own investment advisor before doing any trading. Make sure you read the full disclaimer at the end of this episode.
Hey, Felix.
Hey, how are you, man?
Good. How are you? How's everything?
Good. I'm
cool. So
trying to figure out what one of these is, but go ahead. What are you doing?
Cool. Yeah, I've actually watched that movie you told me to take a look at about spoofing.
Oh, the Bloomberg.
Like that mini document. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. What did you think about it?
It was great. I really liked it. Yeah.
Good. At least you have some backdrop now as well. Like, what's interesting, right? When you watch it, they basically blamed the flash crash on some kid. I mean, he was trading futures. Now, I don't know how many futures he was spoofing or what he was actually doing, but you know, if he has let's think about, they arrested a guy because he put offers, or he was putting offers into the market that maybe he didn't really want to be executed, but if somebody did buy them from him, he was going to actually have to actually sell them that offer. It was a real trade. So they arrested a guy who kept putting offers to try to, push the market down. However, the flip side of that is that the actual people who were selling because he put the offers there. They were front running his order. So it's like blaming, the guy puts an offer, and then the machines are programmed to front run. And so they front run the offer and they sell, and then he gets blamed for just putting an offer there. Not the guys not the machines who are actually selling. So it goes back to regulation, power, control, who has, who is making the rules, how are they defined, who's benefiting from the rules, and how much lobbyist money. I mean, if you look at how much money is being poured into the politicians, into getting the right regulation into law, it's hundreds of millions of dollars, because there's billions of dollars at stake. And so, it's all a game of money that's being passed around to create laws. Whoever has the most money is going to help create the best laws that fit what they want to do. So I highly recommend watching it with the context of, now that you understand what spoofing is, and in a better way, and understand what has just happened in our world and how that relates to what we just said: regulation, the powers that be, who's making the regulations, the lobbyists. You just look at the lobbyist money. It's important. I think it's important to go through it. So I'm glad you did that. That's awesome. That's good.
I enjoyed it. It was really cool. Yeah.
It's good. Yeah. And it's funny, but they don't arrest. You don't hear them arresting the big guys. But if you go look, you just click spoofing and somebody got into trouble. It's always some little guys that are, sometimes they're actually trading for the banks. They just got a bunch of guys. It's a big case. That's why I'm following. It's a big case. It's a JP Morgan, and it's in gold and silver, but in the commodities. And so they caught these guys spoofing in the commodities, JP Morgan. And JP Morgan was like, that wasn't us, that was them. And they just kind of let these guys are on their own now, saying, hey, like, we were doing things, and it went all the way up to the top. But nobody wants to hear that. It's just, you're in trouble, and these guys are going to get thrown out of business. So it's very, very interesting. And this whole Wall Street Bets is uncovering something in the shorts, in the naked shorts, and then in the short selling. But there's other areas within the market that, again, it's the powers that be that do control what's happening in the legislation. So that's my 2-minute rant. Go ahead.
Nice,
So
nice.
why don't you tell me what did you see, or maybe you saw something today, whatever. I can tell you 1 second. It's marijuana.
Marijuana, yeah.
I mean, it's like all over the place, but we'll get to that. Why don't you tell? We want to start there? We can start there.
Yeah, let's start there with ACB, TLRY, stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I see a lot of trading. Yeah, you see my screen?
No, not yet.
Not yet. All right. Let me connect here. Here we go. Select screen, and we want to do this one. Wow. How about now?
All good. Yep.
All good. Perfect. Okay. So, unusual options activity board. We will, let's move this right over here. click IV up and click on the volume. And right at the top is Tilray up $4, 18%. ACB's up, and this AFRI is here. I mean, 3 out of the top 10 so far. Um, yeah, so let's call it 3 out of the top 10 of marijuana
Hmm.
stocks, and they're all screaming. And if you look at, I thought, I didn't see any particular trades, but I see a lot of trades. So we could just start with Tilray. Let's make sure we read it correctly. So Tilray's up 4.25, up 18%. Earnings coming out in March, mid cap name, decent amount of volume. Frankly, it's not, one thing I would say overall is I was looking today, these volumes, while there's nothing to sneeze at, is to 285. It's not the big volumes that we were seeing 3 weeks ago, right? 4 weeks ago. We're seeing millions, right?
Hmm.
By the time
Yep.
it was 1 o'clock. Today, it's not as much here. More calls and puts, relative volume 1.4, IV, really high, 175, and it's even going higher here. And so now we can take a look. Let's take a look at Tilray. And across the board, you're seeing February 5th, there's a lot of activity going on. You could see the 30 calls. We're trading 27 calls. Let's try to move away from, again, that's more of day trading and more of, unless there's a big event that they believe is coming or they know, but usually it's more positioning to just, make some money today, right now, with the stock up 4. Actually, in this case, um, you might even see here some puts, people playing the downside because it's up 4 and they want to. So it's both sides, but obviously a little bit more over here, and people just, looks like they're adding to calls here. Okay.
Hmm.
But this sort of, I'm looking at earnings and the players who, potentially, I think the larger, the top 1% guys, they're going to be looking for an event. So unless they see an event here, that's that they're looking for something to really anchor their position. Okay, so I just clicked on March, 27,000 options, just looking around above and below, and it looks like we see a lot of it. A lot of it's going to be right around here, the 25-30 call spread. It looks like that's what it is just from eyeballing it. Let's just take a look here. So in the morning, here we have some spreads. So it does look like a lot of spreads here, and let's go back to this one, to the 35s. Sorry, 25 to the 30s. Again, spreads in that morning. So it does look like it's someone buying these call spreads, or just rolling down. So they probably had them in the 30s, and or they bought the 30s, or this is just a call spread adding here. So nothing super exciting, but volatility's up, and just people in general sporadically all around. But let's hone in on one particular option just to kind of get an idea of what people are looking at here.
Hmm.
So if you look at Tilray with the stock trading 27.5, if you're buying, let's just say you're thinking about buying this one outright, forget about whether it's in a spread, and you're buying this one, you're thinking about buying this one outright, and it costs you $5, right? The RR dollar is coming out at 45.75. So I just want to take a look at that a little bit closer. So right now the stock is trading 27.5, and you see here that the in the money percentage, even at the money, is not 50. So if this was shifted from 23 to 27, shifted about $4 here. And again, yesterday, I want to make sure that people understand that the Black-Scholes model is just a model. And so when you start getting implied volatility so high, okay,
Hmm.
the at the money option no longer has this 50-50 chance, on a model based. If you stick in Monte Carlo simulation here, it's going to say 50-50 or close to 50-50. You stick in maybe another type of simulation, it might be 53 to 47 or something like that. But because it's a Black-Scholes and it's closed, the model is basically saying, on a percentage basis, we said this yesterday, I just want to repeat it because it's important. If let's just take a stock that's $100 and we say it's going to move up 90%, we think it'll move up 90%. That's 100 to 190, right? Tomorrow,
Yep.
if it moves down 90%, where does it go? From 180 down to close to
20. Yep.
$20, right? And then the next day it goes up 90%. It goes from 20, close to 20, to call it $38. Okay. And then the next day from $38, it moved down 90%, right? Up and down 90%, moves
Hmm.
down 90%. It's getting closer and closer to zero. You could see that would go down to about, call it $4. So you went from 100 to 190, 190 to 38, 38 to or to 8 to 20, 20 to 38, and then 38 down to 4. You could see the trend is going down mathematically in a model, mathematically to zero. So what the Black-Scholes formula is not catching here is that it's just the volatility. This number is cranking up, and the stock is bound by zero, and mathematically it trends to zero. So what you'd have to do is to adjust a little bit the strikes, or you could just start looking at just basic numbers, right? So we're going to look at, let's say 50, let's say 54. So 54, the market's sort of saying you got to look at something higher than 45, but this is being driven by this. This is probably a little bit higher than what it's saying here. If I was using, say, Monte Carlo, which would be, this half of the sphere is the same as this half, is, it looks symmetric. Okay. So what I'd have to do is adjust a little bit for that. But if I put in 54, remember, somebody's not buying the 30 calls, which are out of the money, unless they're trying to make, like we say, 150 to 250, 150 to 400. The further you go out of the money, okay, the further you're thinking about buying strikes out of the money, you want to see how much you're making. Making 365 or expecting to make 365 on the 30 calls sounds a little bit high, right? I think people would be happy with making 300%. So as a target stock price, I would say that, you're probably looking at somewhere in the 47, 48 levels, 47, 48 levels. And if you think about it, you see how we're looking third. If we put in 47, you see how it was shifted four strikes, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's
Hmm.
the same shift from here to 50%, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 approximately. So 47 to 48 gets me that shift. But really what I'm looking at is how do I get 200 to 300% returns on this trade? Right? And then I can just fit it to here instead on high volatility names to avoid this Black-Scholes motto push to zero. I could just start looking at this. Where am I making 250 to 200 to 300 on this 10% out of the money option? Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yep.
So for
Yep.
very high volatilities, instead of this one, I'm just going to like focus it more over here, and I'm going to figure out where that number is. So 48, 49, we can now look at, let's look at, uh, yeah, let's do this. Oh, I'm not logged in here.
Oh.
Sorry. Okay, so let's look at Tilray. Tilray, and I want to do larger screen. Okay, and I'll do log. I'll take off the log scale for now, although for longer term, I think log scale is better. So we have a stock here that's, doing this moonshot, this dance that we've seen before. Um, we talked about we've been talking about marijuana stocks since it started making this move here, right? It was here, then made it here, and we're long CGC, which is having a similar type of thing. We can look at that in a second, but let's look at a little bit longer term just to get an idea. And we know this story. This was, if you will, the first GME over the last 2 years, right? It went from 5 to 300 and then came all the way back down. It spent the last year and a half, down here at sort of to call it $7-8, and now it's starting to make its move. Can it go up to wherever? I mean, it could. Can it repeat this? I think it'll be harder this time. I think
Hmm.
you learn your lesson once, and then hopefully it shouldn't happen again for the shorts. But surely I could see this thing. It's not a high cap name, so you can start pushing this around a little bit if people are getting on board. So that's the weekly. Going back to the daily, there's nothing. This is might as well be a new stock. It's clear skies. There's nothing here to say this could stop anywhere. I mean, it's one of these things where you can never call a top on this thing. What I would say is that I would like to see. Let's go. I'm trying to get to see more traction at these levels. Okay, so let's do this. So if you see here, 2022, there's something going on here for whatever reason, right? I just watch long enough, you see me do these sort of what I call pivot levels for whatever reason. I don't know the reason. I don't know if because people got in at certain levels and this happens to be the level, but 20 to 22 seems to be a level for this stock. Down here it was, here, broke down, came back through, broke down, came up, sold that level. 20 to 22, okay, 20 to 22 seems to be sort of a hot spot for this particular stock. And if you look at it stretching over here, where did it fall off? 2022, it came back again, and now it broke through here. That's bullish. Obviously, it's bullish. This movement is curved. You see this curve right here? That's
Yep.
always a bullish sign. Do we know where it's going to stop? I have no idea. I don't think anybody knows, but I would say a next sort of interesting level is probably 34. And then after that, we're talking about somewhere closer to $50. Okay, so these are the levels that I would be looking at when we're thinking about trading the 30 calls, and it's going to cost, what do we say, $5, and we're looking at 48. Well, it's sort of starting making a sense that just by looking at the chart here, places that are similar or that look interesting, this is what you got to believe, right? Next stop is probably a quick stop at 30, 32, 34 with momentum. So somewhere, just bring this all the way over here. And then, you see that, can't make it up right here. Here's the highs over the last year and a half. And this is where people are pointing to, right? Call it X marks the spot.
Yep.
But you got to pay $5, which is not aesthetically, it's not cheap, right? It's 20% of the stock, but the stock just moved $5. So, you got to put things in perspective. How I would look at this, do I jump again? It's like the Cloudera yesterday. We can look at that later. This is an extension here. This is extension in stock. Okay. And then I'll just delete this. It's just start getting to be too many arrows, but this is an extension of stock here from really in 6 weeks from 10, right? It's gone from 10 to almost 30, 27.5, almost 30 in 6 weeks. It's a huge move. It's a huge move. I'd love to see it come back to this 2022 range and hold. So I'd love to see it come back and hold and then take off here back to the next level. That said, it could trade like this tomorrow. So, but I don't, I said it yesterday, I say it again. I don't like chasing. I don't like jumping after things. I like waiting for a good setup and then figuring out when the right time is to rethink it and come back in. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can, that was Tilray. I think all of these are going to have the same one. So just to walk through each one quickly. This one looks like it's just starting to get going, the Aurora Cannabis, but you could see this sort of level here that it's flirting with. Sorry, we're going to look at this as another one that's coming from way up in the sky, but 20 is a big level. Stock's 13 3/4, and then you got this right here as a decent level, right where it's trading. So it's got to get through that, and if it does, you could see these things move from 15 to 20 just because. Nothing, no, forget about fundamentals, just because. We talked about the reason we're in this is because why? The big news we're waiting for is a change in the huge news, the game-changing news is a change in what? In the ability to allow
investors.
BlackRock specifically, the big investors, right? BlackRock, they're long one medical marijuana name, I believe. But it's sort of because it's a medical stock. That's why they can be in it. But when they're allowed to trade and hold custody at their stock at JP Morgan and whatnot, without any fear of getting in trouble, that is game changing. These stocks explode. Until then, nobody knows. And by the way, that's going to be that's not coming next week. That is Vice President Harris, pushing her safe and legislation through and seeing what they can do there. But the states need the backdrop was the states need cash, and at some point marijuana is becoming legal in the states. Why? Because the states are saying, we need money, and so we're going to sort of be a little more lenient with this stuff right now to raise some money. Same thing with DraftKings and online gambling. So all of these things have this backdrop of the states need money, and where they're going to get money, they're going to allow sort of legislation to tax these things that maybe in another environment would not be taxed. If it goes to the federal level, that's game changing. That becomes like what everybody's waiting for. It might take a year, 2 years, who knows how long it'll take, but that is game changing when BlackRock's allowed to buy. Look at any one of these energy names, ENPH. Just look at that. When they get long a name, it goes from 20 to 100. So these things, people who can buy it, the average investor is gathering these names. I know a lot of investors that are buying these things saying, it's one trade for 10 years, and at some point BlackRock's going to get in and they're going to buy it. And in the meantime, I can nibble at it at different levels. So we're not playing the long-term stock game. Okay, I can tell you that's what people are doing, but we are playing the options, the here and now. I think the here and now is talk of merging, companies merging with each other, one, and two, just the talk of legislation gets these things going. Okay, so that's TLRY, ACB, and we happen to be long CGC. So that's that.
Cool.
What else are we seeing?
All right. What about QS? QS was a wild ride we were talking about for a while.
QS.
Yeah.
Yes, QS. QS is Quantscape, right? Quantscape?
Yeah, it's our scapegoat for like showing the mountain, right? Like,
Quantscape? Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, this is
QS.
the mountain. This is the mountain stack.
This is the mountain. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. This was when we first might have to copyright that. Is there a way we can make t-shirts the mountain? Okay, so all right, so here you go. Here's what we looked at, and let's see here. Yeah, it's starting to wake up here a little bit. I see that. Okay, so just looking at it without even looking at what you've seen in the options, I'm going to just do something here and just say this level is, again, for whatever reason, just one line. If I had a choice to draw 3 lines, usually I say 3 lines. When I'm coaching someone, I say, if you're going to show me a graph, no more than 3 lines, please, because my brain combusts, or it gets close to combusting. So 3 lines. 1, I would say that's important. Obviously, the high, when it's something like that, somewhere around here, that's important. And my 3rd line is going to be somewhere around here, right? Because there was this, it didn't want to close above here twice in 2 big days here, volume. And here there was a gap up from this level, and then there was this gap down here, and then you could see 75 here, right? So there's my 3 lines, 1, 2, 3. And now visually I can sort of see, okay, I'm looking at 47 to 75, maybe pretty quickly if any type of news, or they can get some momentum here. And then after that, yeah, they're going to gun for something up here, but I think the shorts will have something to say somewhere around, let's call it 100 to 105, somewhere around here. I think the shorts would have something to say and say, stay in your lane. This is not worth this much right now.
Right.
That's what I think. Okay. Remember what we saw. We saw someone getting out here. Okay. Right here. We were literally right here, and we were watching it. Someone was buying a put spread, selling a call spread at 110. And, the idea was it was pay 19 to, what was it? Win 14, lose 19, something like that. And we said, nobody would do that trade. That's not, you're not playing heads or tails to do that trade. So nobody would do that trade unless they thought that the stock was actually going to go down and had a high probability and high conviction. And sure enough, within days, it traded down to 45. Okay. Now let's see what you're seeing here. That's my technical, because what I'm trying to do is to make sure that people do the analysis in compartments, whether I start with technicals or whether I go to options first. You're telling me there's options. I'm telling you, okay, don't even show me the options. I'll go to the technicals and let's just see what the technicals say. So now we can go to the options, and Quantscape is, which one are you looking at? February's?
Actually, all February's, all 3 at a $50 strike, I believe.
50 strike, 4,000 in there. Okay, might be, there's an open interest there, so that's a little, makes me wonder. Okay, February. Okay, 50. Wow. 12,000 there. And okay, let's just look at this Friday. Stocks up here. People want it 50. So they're in love with the 50s.
Yeah.
I guess 50s is the mark. So now let's just try to take a look at, let's just see February 12, 2-week options, 2-week options, 50, and it's telling us 60. Okay, but I know the vol's high, so let's
Yeah.
just take a look at what type of level at the 50 level can I get. Let's go 65. 65 gets me 300% returns on the 50. 65 gets me 300% returns on the 50, which is approximately right. You see how this is shifted because it's shorter time frame. This is shifted only
Hmm.
$2. Okay, so I'm looking at 300. So I would say it's probably not going to be that far from the mid 60s, the mid 60s. Okay, so let's just call it mid 60s for right now, and let's look at February 19th. February 19th, if you're looking to buy the 50 calls, or you're trading these 50 calls, which look like they were buying, they have been buying. Okay, so the 50 calls February 19th, just throw number 75, go down a little bit, 71. Okay, so 65 for Feb 12th, 71 Feb 19, and we just said 65 to 71. So somebody's trying to play this right here over the next 4 or 5 weeks. And that coincides with this, which is this range, right? We were talking about
Hmm.
right here, this gap, right? 70 to 85. So they're playing sort of what we're seeing, right? They're playing what we're seeing. Now the next question is, what's the story or why? I don't know the why. That's what I'd have to look. And when I looked at this, I know that this is a battery stock. Um, and it looks like they're getting sued a lot.
Hmm.
But um, I would start looking at this, and I would start looking at what possibly could be the rumors. I would look at the short interest. I would look at any news, right? Any news in QuantumScape. Um, plug power continues to climb more than doubling. Plug power. Talking about plug power clarifies yesterday's share registration. So it looks like they might have actually had a share registration, which is interesting. You'd probably want to understand that. Which just on the news may have contributed to sizable plunge in the stock. Okay, so that was January 6th. So that was when things were happening when we were looking at it.
Yep.
Um, okay, so I think that's done. So maybe that's done, and now they're coming for it. But it just would need a little bit of digging that we did yesterday, and trying to find out a little bit more. I would go to, let's see, the earnings, and where am I going to? I want to look for SEC filings, analysts. I want to look for the
Re-
transcript, the actual transcript. But
so I probably go to earnings, right? And
yeah,
then.
earnings. It's not. I don't see it. So
Mhm.
maybe there's no transcript yet. Um, but in any event, I'd like to hear what the CEO is saying.
Mhm.
Is this a SPAC too? This might be a SPAC. I'm not sure. So I'd like to see whatever information I can see is really what I'd like to actually try to figure out. But it's a name here that I guess you got Bill Gates involved and some. Not saying that there's nothing there, but I do remember reading as part of the story that um, you know it's technology and the way you test. You have to test. You can test technology in a lab, and it might work. But when you get from the lab to the manufacturing of the car, the battery is so sensitive and the tests are being done in this enclosed environment where nothing's moving, everything's done. But in a manufacturing environment, there's it's just a different environment. And so it did, apparently they had some good results in a tested in a very enclosed environment. And people are concerned that that enclosed environment is not reality, because in a reality environment, it's not going to work the same. And so that's what the shorts are kind of saying. This is way too high. Not saying that it can't work in the future, but right now we're not getting the actual results. It's not a sure thing.
Right.
Okay. So
Mhm.
if it is a short thing, it probably trades 1,000, but it's not a short thing just yet. And we're not there scientifically. So that's what this company is about. And again, can I argue that that it's not going to go here? No. But they're paying a decent price. Again, you pay $5 for this is, February 19th. Today's February 3rd. Talking about 2 weeks, 10 days. for it to really take off. Can it? Sure, but you got to start thinking at some point, are you in this to make the 1,000, or are you in this to try to capture 300, 400%, every other month?
Hmm.
That's a harder game. If you're in it for the 1,000, I would say, it's probably not a bad time to enter the stock right here. It has pretty good volume. I'm just looking at this over here now. It
Hmm.
has pretty good volume, since the 20s. So probably not a bad idea to nibble at a little bit of stock. And then as it comes lower, if you like this name, playing the options game at 170 vol over 6 weeks, a lot harder, a lot
Uh-huh.
harder. Okay. So let's move on to the next one.
Okay. The next one is GOEV. Another.
We talked about this one too. EV stock.
Yes. Yes.
Apple.
Canoe. We're looking car. Yes, Apple was involved as well.
Right. They're coming for this one again too, huh? Chart actually, just glimpsing at the chart, looks pretty good. All right. So you're looking at which one here in
I'm looking
Geo?
at Feb, March, and May. Feb, March, and May.
Fed, March, and May. They're coming
Yeah.
after everything. The 20s, 17,000 right here. Um, we have open interest there, but they're coming after that one.
Hmm.
We could take a look for a second. The 17 and a half, 20s, and 22 and a halves.
It looks like they're
Signals.
loading up more.
Yes, look at this. This is
Right.
big. This is a big burst here.
Hmm.
Stock jumped 16 and a half, 1720 here. Um, Now it's coming off the stock, but the vol is still climbing. So I would say here it looks like buyers for sure. Um, Buyers of stock, buyers of buyers of stock, buyers of options. Maybe the options cause the stock, but the volatility. Even you see this, you see how
Hmm.
it was a burst of buying. This is a good one. So meaning you see how there's a burst of buying in the
Yes.
stock. Okay, okay, and then you see this burst of buying in the options. So we see that. Okay, that's one. And then what do we see? We see that the volatility maintains that level. And then at some point, the stock comes off. The stock starts dropping from 17.10 back down to 16.40, down
Okay.
70 cents. And we don't see the drop off in IV. The IV actually continues going higher. So that means people are still nibbling at this and they're still trying to buy these options. Okay. I
Hmm.
don't know who it is, but they're coming in. I would suggest in this one, it seems to me that it's another one where, I mean, it looks good, meaning these types of move, I don't know, looks good is maybe looks good, maybe too good of a statement. It looks like there's opportunity for this thing to go up. So when
Hmm.
I say looks good, I'm thinking about risk reward and thinking, it's got to get, let me mark it up a little bit so I can show you. This is, there's a big line here, maybe across. Sometimes they use the closing, and you got something. If it's closing, then this would be the closing. This doesn't exist. If it's closing, then it's something like this. So depending on which one you want to look at, if you want to look at the whole day, the high went up to 25, but then it closed at 19. So they sold it all the way down. Close. If we just took that a line graph, close would be somewhere here, and then not even here. It'd be somewhere here. So we'd be close to where it dropped off. You see that? So
Yeah.
you see that's the close. That's the close. So and this would be here. So this is a closing level. Some people use these things and they use closing levels as opposed to the whole thing. I tend to look at both. So this is close, which gets you right here where it tried to break through and came down. This is from where it went all the way down. It looks like it kind of break through. So which one is it? Your guess is as good as mine. Okay. I will say that this is sort of the lows here, and this is a low, which is giving you a little bit, you know, it's not linear here. So,
Hmm.
given all that, one line that I would say is important, I would say 13 and a half. Okay. And then I would say this one, 22, because that was the first time it went there. And then it tried to get above there and it was shot down. So I would say 13 and a half, 22 and a half seem like interesting levels. People are betting for a lot higher, which means that they're actually believing that Apple could be, someone that is interested in this company. Apple just, you saw the news today, right? There's a rumor that Apple and Kia
And Kia. Yeah.
which by the way, as a tangent, that doesn't even make sense to me. But I mean,
I know.
what Kia is to me is not. When I think of Apple, I think of American companies. I think of quality. I
Luxury.
think of
Yeah.
trust. I think of higher end. Even if it comes at a cheaper price, I still think of higher end. When I think of Kia, I'm not saying it's wrong to have a Kia. I just don't get that same feeling. I don't
Hmm.
get in the US, Mercedes Benz or Porsche or those are high end brands. Kia doesn't strike me as a high end brand. It might be somewhere else. I don't know, but when you see a Kia, it's not like, oh, this is
Yeah.
high end. Apple, when you have an Apple iPhone, it's like, wow, you have the new Apple iPhone. It's a statement.
Hmm.
It's fashion. It's has meat on it. Kia, I would be surprised. It just doesn't make sense. I keep saying Apple, Pinterest. Right? Pinterest to me, wow, it's nice. It's good pictures, quality. The type of people that are there trying to put
Right.
show their pictures of their business, their homes. It's all different things. It just seems like a higher end person. So that's why I think Pinterest is perfect for Apple.
Hmm.
But I don't know. Kia doesn't make sense. But that's a tangent. Anyway, back to GOEV. Maybe they believe that. Maybe people believe, or there's an announcement coming, or something's here. But or maybe this is the next one that they're trying to push. And they say, okay, look, the Wall Street Bets crowd, they've learned something in this. We've been saying it for 2 months in this whole ordeal. Okay, for the last months, they have a lot of power. If they work together, they have a lot of power. Okay. The hard part is working together, right? It's trying to get people to do the same thing and make sure we're on the right track. And this is what we're thinking, and this is why. But they could easily, one snap of the finger, moderators say, okay, we made some money. For anybody who made some money in GME, let's throw it in this name or this name or that name. And there's 30 names. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a GOEV floating around, idea floating around, and people are starting to get on board here.
Hmm.
I see the potential, but here's what I would say. Okay, the only red flag that I see today, you have a lot of call buying, right? A
Okay.
lot of call buying, and you have millions of this call buying is producing millions of shares, right? Millions of stock to buy, and I look at Canoe GOEV and I see it up 69 cents, and I think to myself, it's not a lot. It probably should be up more. If everybody's buying all these calls, it should be, I would guess it should be up more. Just a guess. You're talking about here 2.5 million shares, right? Is a lot. Well, just in option buying today is probably 1.5 million shares. Does that make sense?
So what does that tell us?
Okay, so you see what I'm saying here? So I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah, I
here,
understand. Yeah.
if everybody's buying calls, right? Let's
Okay.
assume you're everybody. You're everybody, and you're buying the 20 calls, the 20. This is all you. Just to put it
Mhm.
into, make pretend you're the person buying all these calls, right? When you buy 7,000 of these 17.5 calls, that's 200,000 shares of stock that I need to buy. You buy 17,000 of the 20 calls. That's going to be, let's call it 15. That's going to be 17,000. It's going to be another 250,000. Just on these two options, that's 500,000 shares to buy. Then you go to March. You buy these 20 calls, 25s. Again, another 120. This is another call it 200, 120. So that's so another 250. So you're talking about a 750, and you go here. It's another, just in deltas, it's another 4120. Let's call it another 250. There's 1 million shares to buy just on the options volume that has come through. 1 million shares to buy. And Canoe GOEV has only traded, it looks like 4.5. It's already traded 4.5 million. So just on the options, you're talking about 1 million, and then everybody following the options with the stock themselves. It might be 1.5 million shares or maybe 2 million shares just on this options buying. And the stock's only up 40, what was it up? It's up 72 cents, 4.5%. It
Uh-huh.
still seems a little light. To me, it still seems a little light for that much options volume. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Which is scary for me to think, okay, I want to buy options with this crowd right now. Right?
I see.
It's making me pause. Right, because everybody's getting in and they're pushing and pushing with their money, trying to push the stock higher, and it's not going up. I would think Canoe would be up $1.50.
Mhm.
$2. You see Tilray,
Mhm.
right? Tilray's, a lot of call activity, a lot of buying. You're talking about millions of shares. Tilray stock.
AP
This
is
is
actually
all.
saying maybe because of a short float, it's about 60%.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It could be, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm saying to you that that's why they're buying it. They're setting up. Somebody
Uh-huh.
might be setting up. They might be setting up this what people call a gamma squeeze, right? They're setting up the strikes, and then they're gonna push, for the next 2 weeks, and they're gonna push, and get people to buy. Like, come on, community. Like the first, let's call Wall Street Bets a million strong. Sure, there's 7 million, but there's a million that are in it, and they're in it to win it, and they're putting money together. The first 100 people are saying, I'm buying calls in GOEV. This is the story. This is what I think. This is what we're going to do. And then what do those 100 people do? They try to rally the rest of the 900,000 and say, get involved, get in here. Come on. Don't worry about GME. Okay, we won the battle there. Let's take some profits. Maybe not. Maybe they have more money. I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying, if you have more money, come back into, let's get this GOEV up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they set up these sort of gamma, you can call it a potential gamma squeeze, where you get so much open interest on one strike where the whole crowd is long, and the stock starts going closer to that strike, and the whole crowd decides they want to hold because everybody owns one option, and everybody's going to buy 100 shares of stock, right? And guess who has to buy all those shares? The broker. Okay, so
Uh-huh.
if everybody's long a million options, and everybody commits to say, I'm going to spend $2,000 and I'm going to buy one share of GOEV if it gets through to 20. Okay, and everybody commits. A million people commit to buy 100 shares. Think about that. That's a million people commit to buy 100 shares of 20. That's 100 million shares to buy. Well, if now they're not going to do it. Maybe they do. Maybe they want to do that. But if they'd have to get a million options on the tape, but maybe it's only 100,000 options. You get 100,000 on options. It's still 10 million shares to buy in GOEV. Okay, so let's talk about it in normal terms. You get 100,000 shares to buy. That's 10 million shares. If everyone 100,000 people commit to buying 100 shares, they're not going to sell, which means that the broker, the market makers, the investment banks who have sold these calls, right now they're buying stock at 16.5. Goes to 17, they'll buy more, but they're not fully hedged. If it shoots up to 20 on a gap, all of a sudden they go from, all right, they were long on 10 million, call it 100,000 options, which is 10 million shares. They are long, 4 million shares. Okay. When it gaps to 20, now they got to be long 5.5 million shares. Gaps to 22, they got to be long 8 million shares. They got to be buying all the way up, hoping that the crowd is going to sell them these calls. But if the crowd has committed to say, no, I'm just going to buy it and I'm going to put 2,000 in, then he's got to buy, the other 6 million shares all the way up. And that all the way up could be 30 before the crowd says, okay, we'll sell them to you now.
I see.
Okay. So that's a gamma squeeze. That's how these things could be. It's very possible to set them up. And that's what I think, that is their power. That is Wall Street Bets' power. If they can corral everyone to commit to that, it's explosive, right? It's like, I mean, they will cause a lot of trouble with the market makers. The one thing I keep saying is the market makers are the ones that are allowing you to actually trade the options. So if Citadel blows up, I can assure you that nobody's going to be happy to trade options because the market's going to be $4 at $6, and you're not going to be able to trade anything.
Right.
So it's almost like you want to beat the beast down a little bit, but not so much that all of a sudden the game's over, right, for everyone. So, but that is their power, and I think that it's important for if they want to realize that. I think they do realize that, and I think that's what's in some of these names. That's what's happening a little bit. Okay.
Okay. Nice.
All right. Good.
Okay.
Good.
Cool.
So that's GOEV. How about should we take a question? Why don't we just take a question?
Yeah, we can take a question.
What about how about yourself? If you have a question, we'll take
I
a
do
question.
actually. Yes, I do, and I would like to use this opportunity to ask. And the question is, so for the past, maybe it's going to be 2 months now, we'll be looking at a lot of UOA, and there's a lot of opportunities that we say, okay, be patient. You have to wait for this a little bit. We don't want to reach. And yesterday we had an example in CLDR. So I just want to ask, when should I know to go back and actually look at that stock, look at that option, see if it's worth buying now?
Sure.
And
I think it's a great. We we come on every day and we talk about 5, 6 things that we're seeing. I try to add nuance to it. I try to add sort of take the pros and cons to what I'm looking at, what I'm thinking about immediately. Before making a decision, I sit on it. Sometimes I sit on it for a long time. I'll sit here for a couple of hours, really just trying to get into the mind of whoever's doing this or why they're doing this. What I would say is patience pays. Okay, patience pays, and um, it's important to, you know, I think the people who have been on the podcast since the first have watched the first 25, 26 podcasts. It, the amount that they have absorbed and learned is tremendous. I guarantee it. Maybe you don't even realize it until you step outside and be like, man, that was, I learned a lot. What I'm trying to get people to do is not just learn, but to sort of take notes and keep going back. There's a lot of opportunities. We've talked about a lot of different stocks, and there's a lot of different opportunities. And patience pays. Getting into them at the right time is really important. It's really important because it dictates your stop and it dictates your exits. And and so, you're going to miss a few by being patient, but you're also going to be able to get in a few that are very good. So I would say something like, here's a sector that, after looking today at what I'm seeing today, I'm starting to sort of look at it again. Okay. And this one's up already since this morning. But this thing, why am I looking at Neo? Because we were talking about it 2 weeks ago about people getting not negative, but sort of switching the risk reward. And the stock had a chance to go down, and it's been going down fairly, consistently for about
Mm-hmm.
a week and a half. But what I'm seeing today and what I've been noticing over the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks, is these Chinese names are bid, right? There's a bid to these names. And some of these names we're at Options Geek, we're long a couple of these Chinese names. So I'm feeling the bid. I want to be long some of these Chinese names because there's activity, there's stock volume, and there's a bid. And I look at something like Neo, and Neo doesn't look like the mountain to me, right? It doesn't look like this is the end of the story. It could be, and it could go down. And I'm looking at the MACD, I'm looking at a lot of things, but this doesn't seem to me like the end of the story. This looks like the end of a story, right? That looks like the end. This doesn't look like the end of the story. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's just me eyeballing it. So I'm watching it and I'm looking at it now. It looked at 55 yesterday. It didn't look pretty because if it breaks this 55 level, it's kind of like more shorts are going to pile in. So what I'm saying to you is that we saw a lot of activity here that was shifting the risk reward, that was seemingly getting out. We've seen the volumes drop in the options, which means people are less interested right now. But what else are we seeing today? We're seeing, you just showed me something in what was it? Kahu, GOEV, GOEV,
Mm-hmm.
which
Canoe,
is
yeah.
which is Canoe, which is one name. There's things like CCIV that are moving, and we can talk about it in a second. There are things like what was the other one? Quantscape, which is a battery that's coming alive. So you know, there's and also Neo is a Chinese stock. So we have Chinese stocks just in general that are bid. Okay, and some of them showing massive momentum. And once some go that high, the next logical conclusion is that they go to the next batch of Chinese stocks that aren't that high, and they go after those, take profits, go after the next batch, and so on and so forth. That's how momentum goes until it all stops. You can keep doing that. But we have Chinese stocks bid. We have EV stocks, selective EV stocks bid. And then we have Neo, which was a high flyer. Everybody loved it, calmed down for a month. And today it's up, 5%. You know, this is the type of things where I start looking and taking a closer look and saying, let me go back a couple of weeks. What were we thinking here? What was happening? And that's why, look, that's why in on the YouTube channel, we try to make it easy. We try to, what I want you to do is say, okay, let's go back in time and let's think about what we were thinking then. Let's see if anything has changed, any new news. What were we saying? What were we thinking? The volume, what has transpired. This is what I'm talking about when I say history. The history matters. Context matters. It's important, again, on the YouTube channel. If I want to see every time we talked about Neo, just search it on the YouTube channel and you'll see
Yep.
2 or 3 videos. Now you can actually go back and go, let me put myself there. Let me now see what has transpired, and let's try to put that's more pieces to the puzzle. The longer you do this, I'm not saying that you got to take a trade every day. That for sure not. But the longer you do this, you start seeing more trends, and you start putting these pieces together. And we could do that here, but I am looking now, at Neo. Taking a harder look at Neo, taking a harder look at, you're going to see the same thing. I haven't looked at it in the last 2 hours, but you're going to see the same thing in Lee. You get the same thing. This is Chinese auto names. Okay, they don't look great because if it breaks here, but I got to tell you, if this goes to 55, over the next month, it's going to look fantastic. Okay, so when it gets to 55, it's going to look amazing because it's going to have this longer digestion phase. It's going to be this nice flag, and then you're going to get this round out. And if it breaks, it goes to 100. If the market is the market is still good, if the market hasn't tanked, market tanks, momentum drops, and it starts all over again. So It's a game of momentum that is, if the market is in momentum phase, these names, you got to play the momentum. If it's not, and at any time, it could just literally in 2-3 days, it stops, you got to reset. Everything resets. So these are the things where I would say for you, I can only talk about a few names every day, and I can give you tidbits of what I'm thinking. But ultimately, for you to do this well it's not just about one day. There's UOA one day today, right? There's a longer story, and that history becomes part of the story that I'm talking about. Okay, so make sure we look at that. What else? Let's want to go do some. Does anyone have I'll take a quick question here if someone has a question.
Okay, let me find some.
Somebody wrote Wall Street Journal hit piece on CCIV. I saw it. It really was a hit piece on CCIV. Is that? Oh, you just put that there. CCIV. Yeah. Wall Street Journal hit piece today. They hate to see it. Yes, there was a hit piece. Let me tell you. Here's the other thing. Okay, about shorts and the short stories, and maybe people know, they don't know, or they don't. Whatever. I'm just gonna say it. There are reporters that. I don't know this for a fact, but it would seem that they are paid by the shorts. So there's a lot of reporters that they are good reporters because what they are saying is actually sound logic. But a lot of times it's these voices that come. Now, to get that type of article through the Wall Street Journal generally has, you got to respect them a little bit more than some, random website. But definitely has more editorial control. Okay, when you start seeing things like pop up in weird sites, there's no editorial control. If it's a good piece that'll get views, they're gonna dump it. So I don't know. I'm looking at TCIV, and actually it leads us to the UOA because there is a lot of UOA there. We talked about CCIV and the options volume. Here, what was it right there at 16, 17 it first came out. The 17 calls, I believe 17 and a half calls were about 3.5. Again, you can go on YouTube and go look at what we were saying here. And we were just trying to decide whether or not stock or options was a better play. In this case, for sure, options were the better play. That doesn't mean, playing stocks you didn't make money. It went from, I think it was about 16 at the time, 16 to 32, 35. So you made 100% on stock, which is an incredible feat in a couple of days. But the options did actually turn out to hit a good 300, call it, let's see, 300, 4 times 12. Yeah, about 300%, maybe even higher, up to about 400%. But here you got to be quick on the draw to get out. And I don't think it would have been wise in a name like this to get out. It would have been hard to stay in once it went to 27, back down to 20 quickly. That's hard. So that's why we have our exits where you don't have to think, because these things do happen. And then you panic sell here, then it goes up here. You probably buy here. You get completely whipped around. So that's sort of just a plug on. Make sure you have a plan and just follow the plan. If it hits 100%, you get out. 100% would have probably been hit right around here, comes back down here, and then shoots up, and then you can sort of get out at different markers. Okay, so I would say on the CCIV, we are seeing, because this is one that I saw earlier today. It's at the top of the charts. but it looks here. You see this, all of a sudden it turned negative. So it looked like, I mean, yeah, it is a hit piece. So what's happening? People are selling, but frankly, they're not selling a lot. The implied vol didn't go down that much. It went down a lot here, but this is just one day, so it's gonna have a much larger effect. But if you look at April options, implied volatility down only 2 on something like this. You know, there's nothing super exciting, but the roll over the tape to buy the 30 calls is $11. I mean, that's again 33% of the stock.
Yep.
It's a lot. It's just a lot. But it's 220 IV. It's a lot. It's basically saying to buy this to get 2 to 1, you got to expect 60, right? 65. So they're forcing you to try to pay higher.
Mhm.
Okay. Again, reaching. I don't like reaching. I don't like going from 10 to 30, and then you're gonna make me buy a $10 option. This
Right.
this is not it's not in my vocabulary to do that. So I can't say to do that. I won't do that. Come back to normal for a little bit. Hang out a little bit at 20, try to go down. Let me see what happens when they put the buyers to the test, and then I'm willing to jump back in a little bit more.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
Here's another one I have.
Go ahead.
It's on the screen.
Thoughts on SPY direction for the next few weeks post earnings, stimulus news priced in. Okay, I mean, I can give you my thoughts. My thoughts don't mean crap. I can tell you that much. I'm not a wizard on where the market is going. I will tell you. That said, the SPY is very strong. I haven't looked at it in the last. Okay, so it's 383. It's very strong. It's reaching this level, 385 again. One thing that I I'm gonna this is how I say it. I respect the V. Okay, this to me is a V. This is a V. This V turned into a W. I respect the V. I definitely respect the W. Okay, so anytime there's a V, I respect it. Even no matter how small, I respect V. V is a very sharp move down, and then very sharp move back up, and you have to respect these things. So this move from 385 to 367 back looks like it wants to go to 385. You have to respect it. Can it do a potential W? It could. Does it mean that you're going along without any puts? Well, I would say you want to have puts, but something like this, I might say it's right after a V. I want to maybe not have a put. Maybe I'll have a put spread. It depends on how big the portfolio is, how many names I'm long.
Mhm.
Remember, I gave you a little strategy about counting the names of calls, but then figuring out how, maybe ranking them on a 1 to 3 scale, to see how much it would move if the stock goes up. Momentum names would be a 3 with calls, which means that they're also going to move down like a 3. Okay, so they're moving. Whereas if you're long something like, I just throw it out, Coca-Cola, that might be, you long calls, that might be a 1, right? And so when you start adding up all the calls on one side and then all the puts, that you have, you could sort of get a number. And from that number, you could say, okay, if I have this type of number, probably need a put here. So again, we can go through that another time in more detail, but that's how I look at it. So here, I'm looking at this 385 level. I'm also I'm concerned a little bit, for sure. There's a lot going on. February is usually a bad month. Now everybody knows that, and once everybody knows that, it no longer happens. But this was this just the GME short squeeze on all these other names, where a large hedge fund was getting hit? That large hedge fund, remember, Melvin was long a lot of names, right? Melvin Capital was long a lot of names. And if you look at their portfolio, they were long a lot of leaders too. They were long Pinterest. They're long Las Vegas Sands, bookings. They're long a lot of names that, without them having to sell as a forced seller, probably don't go down that much. So when you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Sorry about
Just
that. Okay,
yeah.
no problem. When you're selling, when you're forced to sell Las Vegas Sands, and Las Vegas Sands tanking, the computers outside of Melvin, they spot Las Vegas Sands tanking, they sell Win, right? Because now they got the
Uh-huh.
spread between Las Vegas and Win. When you're long General Motors and you're selling General Motors, and General Motors is tanking, then people say, or the computers will say, I'm going to sell Ford, right? And so forth. So that's why even though Melvin doesn't own it, you start selling forward. So if Melvin is a large 15 billion at the time, was 15 billion, and they're getting beat in one name, and they forced to sell the rest of the names, and the rest of the names are leaders in their industries, and you're selling the leaders. What happens when you sell the leaders? The machines pick that up and they sell everything else. So the question is, was that dip in the market just a blip because you had Melvin, Maple Lane, and obviously some computers start bouncing off each other because one computer has all the computers start having the same names and they all push it down. And then when GME came back down to reality where it is now, you see that the market's coming back to where we were. So maybe we're back to flat, everybody's squared up, and now we can keep going to where we were going. Where do I think it could go? Frankly, I think we can have a moonshot. I mean, I really believe that we can have a moonshot to close to 394. I mean, it's not even a moonshot, it's 2%, but 400. Try to test that 400 level. If we look at 385, right, it's very, very exact. 385 to 370, call it 369. That's 16 points. Well, why can't it go 16 points higher here, which would get you to 401? Okay, so I'm looking, before this is over, remember, we're looking for that mountain. This is a pretty steady move all the way up. I'm always looking for this in reverse. So I'd like to see this is what I'd really like to see, right? And then down.
Okay.
Now we're starting to get like Star Wars here, so I'll take that off. But yeah, I mean, fundamentally, I think the thing should be, again, one line. If I had to draw, let's draw one line that I think is an important line.
Okay.
If we turn here, 355, right around here. See, right around this level, 350. That's the area I'm looking at. Okay, it's got to break. It's got to come down. That level is going to be a big test, and then after that, it becomes, let's try the 320. Somewhere around here, because this move was very quick. It was the Trump gone, Biden in presidency, the election, and this is a 20, 30 point move where it was really gapped up.
Yep.
And so this is going to be a big level. If this level is broken, maybe you get political reasons why, the Senate's not going to give Biden what he wants. They're going to hold firm. They can't push enough through. The dollar amount to people can't be done well. Whatever it might be, taxes are going to get raised. They're going to have to raise taxes to support all of this. When they start talking about taxes, the market doesn't generally like taxes. So this to me seems like it's got to break 350, 352, 355. That's going to break on policy, right? Right now they're buying into policy, which is clean energy and billions of dollars to the market. Breaks this. That means somehow they're taking money out. That's what I would think. That's what I'm looking for. I'm also keep an eye, because at some point they're going to start talking about it. You can look at the dollar, right? And this dollar has gone straight down, correlated a lot with the market. Sorry, I'm trying to get this here. Okay, so this gone straight down. The world essentially, and this has been doing this from here. So essentially the world is short the US dollar. Okay, so there's a big short. So you want to talk about a huge squeeze, a big squeeze, and I don't know how it would happen, and I don't know what's going to actually push it to happen, but you want to talk about a huge squeeze. This is 1, A, B, C. If you get a squeeze for whatever reason, this thing goes up here, the market crashes. Okay, in my opinion, this could be an unwind of huge proportions. Remember, the FX market and the bond market, the equity market's a pimple on an elephant's ass. If the FX market, okay, currencies and bonds are not doing well, then that's going to control the market. In general, the equities moves, significantly if those markets are bad. If something happens bad in those markets and the US dollar starts, if everybody's short here and gets squeezed up here, then you're going to see assets across, bonds and stocks move in a big way. So I would keep an eye on the US dollar. That's my view. That's what I'm thinking. I'm looking at the general market seems fairly strong. The leaders keep winning, and the names that I want to be long, strong names, and that's it. Frankly, I'm looking for those trends. We're long marijuana. We're long Chinese. We're long our favorite Pinterest. We're long this GM. We're trying to stay long. I mean, we're hitting good marks there. You know, we're long a lot of these trend names and leaders in the trend names. We do need some protection here as well. So I'll leave it at that. How about that?
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
Good.
that's fair.
What else? That's it. I think we're time's up.
Yeah, time's up. We're gonna rifle through some if you want.
Okay.
If
Real
you want.
quick, I would just say, look at the steel names. That's what I was looking at today. So let's just go through a couple. The steel names, specifically letter X.
Mhm.
So letter X is one that I was seeing here. Letter X steel down significantly in the last couple of weeks. Commodity name. You know, I mean, these things were up huge though, but this does not look like a nice chart. Okay. You see this here also MACD. There's a MACD diversion, which I was looking at, but it looks like it's got to break this to really keep going here. But I think, you know, you have the MACD up, price high, MACD did not reach. And so this collapses. If this would have held here, it would have been extremely bullish. The 20 range, 1920 breaks that. And now this thing could, you know, probably get down to 13, 14 maybe. But there's a lot of put buying and there's a lot of maneuvering. I wouldn't say it's all put buying. It's actually a mix. So I would look at letter X. My notes, I would look at PayPal, PayPal upside calls, and then there's these Chinese names that I would look at, the VIPS, VIPS. Did we talk about that already?
No. VIPS, PDD, and MOMO, right?
Right. VIPS, PDD, and MOMO. Mo money. All right. There we go. So these are names that I would just look at, that they're moving. Again, it's all this, just in general, it's the second layer of Chinese, maybe even third layer, third layer of Chinese names that are catching a bid today for whatever reason. You know, those names I would look at. They all have call buying activity. The letter X has more put buying, 1x2s today, and that I've seen, but adding to shorts, and PayPal, there's a lot of call buying. Also, I think shifting in February. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Phil. That was a great session. Learned a lot. I hope everybody else did as well. I've seen a lot of comments. Some people asked for different stocks, so we'll try to do those tomorrow as well. And before we run off, I want to thank everybody for 2,000 subscribers. And we've been receiving some really good feedback on our Winning Picks ebook. So I'm just quickly going to show you guys how to get there and learn a little bit more about it. You go to optionkey.com, go to products, and then you're under Winning Picks ebook. You can find it. Felix, if you don't mind saying a few words about the product.
I would say that, you know, what many people who have been with me for a while, you know, they love the education. The education is really the foundation, right? And it gets you thinking in a certain way. Once you think in a certain way, and you know, the next part is the ideas. I'm trying to put the secret sauce on top of the ideas, but I think reading the ideas and seeing how they're developed and going through them one by one as a history lesson, as going, this is what we were thinking. We can only make a judgment call at the time when, you know, at the moment we're doing it. And then we can look back and we can sort of say, was the logic correct? And over time, you know, by reading these ideas, and I put 148 trade ideas, exactly what I wrote on the day we were writing it, exactly similar to what I'm saying here, so that you can go back and look at the charts and say, and look at the news and sort of say, this is what was going on. This is how it transpired. And this is what I need to be looking for. And there's a lot of it. There's a lot of, in each trade, there's nuance. In each trade, there's, you know, like we're doing here every day, there's something a little bit new, or maybe a little bit that, you know, one is weighted a little bit higher than the other. So I would say that, you know, I try to do it for $35. I was not giving this out before. And I just thought, you know, I know Marco thinks it's valuable. A lot of people tell me the ideas is it's incredible the way, you know, you're putting this stuff together. So I thought, you know what, fine. I'll give the ideas out and people can have fun and ask me questions or whatever. And, you know, maybe we can do that one day as a side thing, but, yeah, I think it's good for the education. It's educational, and I think you'll learn a lot for $35.
Exactly. Yes. Awesome. Thank
All
you,
right.
Felix.
Thanks,
All
everyone.
right.
Bye-bye.
Catch you tomorrow. Bye.